So it's the day after I finished this sink. That little beverage cooler is nice and cold, so that's a good thing. I was overheated, so grabbed a bud. And I am right now going to add the plywood on this side, going up high here to divide the kitchen area and the electric closet. And once I have that in place, I'll be able to hang the inverter. It's, I think, going to either be on a shelf this way, or I may move that box and hang it there. But it could also go down here at the bottom. I think I've decided that the battery bank is going to go right under this part here, and I'll have venting right there. But I don't want to put the inverter under the floor because of heat. So I'm going to take some measurements, figure out how that's got to go, but the divider is going in first. And I am intending to tie that divider in on the electrical system side to the woodwork here of the ceiling. I know that I have runners here and up here to work with as far as to block into. So I've got to take some measurements and get that divider figured out, get some cuts made, etc. So it'll be 3/4 plywood. And then I may also, while I'm at it, cut an end cap here. I think I'm going to have this one come up to about right here. So, and it'll have a rounded corner on it for safety's sake. So anyhow, I'm gonna get at it. So for the side that goes against the wood burner, I've got this piece cut. I used the jigsaw there and that paint can to create a little curve here, since we'll be walking through there, so we don't catch ourselves on the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this in place inside the bus. So I cut this piece. I have it kind of screwed in place, and I've taken some measurements, and I'm going to use the jigsaw to cut those lines out. I don't know if you can see them. One to go on the wires, the other one to match the slant there on the roof or the ceiling. So it should be awfully close. I can trim it a little bit better as I fit it. So we'll see what I got here. I think my measurements are right. Alright, that's close enough that when I put some 2x material there, will be good. This side's going to get some other finish on it, so I can work that more closely to the ceiling line there. And I can block both sides of it. There's going to be some kind of a shelf back in here, so I can dress it up a bit at that point. So anyhow, I'm going to get it screwed in place, and I'm happy with that. Alright, so I thought through my plan a little bit more. I think what I'm going to do is put the inverter under this piece right here. This will kind of have a hinge on it to be able to pop up just like the regular hatches. And then the battery bank will go right next to it in the floor platform, which I'll make 10 inches tall instead of 8. So that'll be an easier step down, and make it a little bit easier to get into the tub, and make these only 7-inch steps, 2 of them, to get up into the bedroom platform. So I think this platform here will be 10 inches. The only place that's going to be awkward is the step down into the side door, but that's not going to be used that much, and I probably could come up with a workaround for that for when we're parked, having some kind of a, yeah, I'll have to think about that. But anyway, I will be building the platforms out of wood in this section here, and I've decided it's going to mostly be 10 inches in height off the floor there. So that way we'll have a battery box with a lid, and then we'll have the inverter right here. It'll be safety protected from anybody shocking themselves and damage, and still get good ventilation. I'll put some vented metal there where the inverter fans will run. And then all we have come up here will be the input and output wires. I believe I'm going to get the electrical input and put it over the wheel well right there, coming over here and down into the inverter over here. That's a lighter gauge wire. I already have enough of it, so that's a good spot for the power in. And I think I'm going to have the water inlet come in right under the kitchen sink, and then it'll just run along the wall and drop down into the water tank right here. There's a big inlet right there, and then it'll also feed over to the second tank on its larger inlet. That'll be with clear pipe, and then we'll run the vents in common as well. That's 1/2 inch NPT. That'll just be either PEX or smaller flex tube. I think I already bought the flex tube, but the tanks will be joined together at the top for venting. So anyhow, I think that'll work. That's my plan coming together. So I did ultimately decide the batteries are here, inverter under my feet in this hatch. So that'll be it. So I'm starting over here. I've put this runner at the bottom. Use this to space it so that I can put the opposite wall in. Next I'm going to put an upright on this wall using the square off of the floor here to keep it level. And before I screw it in, I'll try to measure it from the uprights there to see that I've got the right dimension, which should be 4 feet, I believe, based on the width of the tub. Should be close to 4 feet. I want to make sure that that piece of wood will set on top once the cedar is put in place. So anyhow, I'm going to keep going. So I've got the runner up the wall there, taking a measurement across, and it looks right. So I'm going to take the opposite wall and I'll put it in place, and I'm going to take some measurements to make sure that it meets the same height as the top of that one when we install it here. So anyhow, I'm going to get that set in place and figure out what we're dealing with as far as the overall measurement. I actually could have another idea. I could measure from the bottom lip of the tub, which meets here, and get awfully close. Yeah, probably better to do it once it's in place. Actually, I'll just use the measurement off the top lip of the tub as the reference point for cutting it at the same level as this one here. So anyhow, I'm going to get at it. Okay, so I've got this in place, and I took measurements from both sides off the edge of the whirlpool, off the base or the lip, and it's 59 1/4 on both sides, so I must have measured correctly to begin with. Yay me. So anyhow, I am now going to put more studs in behind this, and we'll get it kind of permanently mounted. Okay, so I just got back from Lowe's. I got 2 of these compact 5.2 quart all refrigerator units. They're going to go above counter height. I've got a 5 quart chest freezer. It'll kind of be tucked away in a corner by the stove up against the couch. It'll have a butcher block added to it. So anyhow, I'm going to get these 2 fridges and the freezer into the bus. What I'm doing right now is I'm cutting pieces of this 3/4 ply for the floor, kind of sectioning things off. I'm going to use little pockets to hold the upright pieces of 3/4 ply, which I will actually put pocket holes in, but it'll help hold them in place. So this will make sense to you when you watch me put it together here. So I'm going to cut the pieces I need out of this this piece that was left over from prior cut. So I'm going to cut one at 25 5/8, I believe, one at 2.5 inches, one at 34 inches, and one at 48 inches. So that'll be more than this sheet, but anyhow, I'm going to get at it. Okay, so I've got these pieces cut. I'm going to lay them out on the floor here, where I've made some markings for my measurements. So this is based on the appliances widths, and accounting for the appliances, the fridges that are going to go above, and where the door closes, etc. So anyhow, I'm going to lay these out, screw them down to the existing floor here. Alright, so I'm screwing pieces in. I actually cut that one a little short, had to build a spacer block there. But I'm using these as, this is a spacer for the uprights that'll drop down in. And then I'm going to screw this piece down, and then so on and so forth till I get all the way to the end. I'm going to put some pieces of wood onto the metal down there, and lock it into the side where the couch is to kind of create some more flooring there. I wasn't sure what I was doing with that space originally, but at this point it's going to be where the freezer has to go. Alright, so we've got the washer dryer going that way, divider. This will be a pantry that rolls out on wheels. Divider. This is so there'll be a lip to the right of the stove to keep the wood from getting burnt by the burners. And it'll also be a little ledge to set a spoon or something underneath. It'll be a little space for like cookie sheets and stuff like that. And then the stove and the chest freezer will go over this way. So got the floor laid in. I think I'll put a coat of primer on the floor, maybe even some paint. Some kind of something to seal it, probably just primer, maybe paint. And then I'll start building the remainder of this. It's a little late to be ripping wood outside, disturb people, so I'm going to do that a different day. But I've got the basis here for the appliance row put in. I left the back edge recessed like that because that'll be an easy place to put like a propane pipe or something else like that, you know, a chase. If I decide to put any drain lines in, they can be fastened down there, you know, if I'm worried about defrosting or whatever. But anyhow, I think this is a good start. I'm going to go over here and finish what I was doing earlier on that wall with the upright supports. So I'm standing here in the Whirlpool tub. I got this other wall put in place. Got the strips in the back here. So the next step here will be to cut a piece for this other side, probably out of 3/4, and then I'll start putting cedar on this top piece here, and then it'll become the ceiling, and we'll tie in. There will be some side pieces on that. We'll tie into these pieces here, and I'll have some cross supports, and then probably some other 1/2-inch plywood over those. So there'll be a little bit of a storage area up there, but it'll serve to be a mounting point for a rain head. We're gonna have a rain head over here, I think, and then a regular shower here, and it's going to spray this way, and then we'll have a shower curtain around the outside here with magnetic closure, and so we'll have the spout come out of this wall as well over this way, unless I decide to do it Roman style through there, but I don't think I'm doing that. I think I'm going to have it just come out of the wall as like a waterfall style spout, subject to my wife's preference. I got to let her choose them, but that's what I had in mind. So anyhow, next up here is, like I said, to put cedar on this ceiling support, get it up in place, and then we'll start putting cedar on all these walls. I might touch up that corner a bit with some red guard. I didn't paint it quite far enough over. So anyhow, I'm going to take some measurements to sanity check that ceiling piece. Should be 48 inches roughly, and then I'll be done for the evening. After measuring, I realized that the wall needed to come in, so my original paint line here was much closer to accurate. So now I have 48 inches across from the studs, so that the ceiling piece will just rest up there, and I can screw it into the 2x material. So anyhow, that's it for the evening. Continuing here for a couple hours this evening, I'm cutting the upright supports for the appliance bay. I split a 4x8 into 24-inch rip cuts, and then I've made these 34 1/4. It's because of this slotting here going down into 3/4 ply to the floor. I want it to be up 33 1/2, which is the height of the washer dryer unit that we'll eventually put in, with a little bit of a tiny bit of a gap, so that'll help just make the right spacing. So I'm cutting a notch here to go over the hardwood floor a little bit. So that way it'll be out 28 inches from the wall, which is the right distance to allow for space behind each of the appliances for airflow or hookups, etc. So I'm going to cut the other two pieces of this with the same notch with the jigsaw. Okay, so each of these has a notch cut in it. I'll be using the pocket hole jig to drill pocket holes in these, but for now I'm going to go dry fit them into the slots. Take some measurements, make sure they're right. Okay, so these boards actually slot in just fine. You can see the notch I made lets them be flush with the floor right there. I've got over here where the combo all-in-one washer dryer unit's going to go. I've got this piece in place. Actually, I think this one's going to probably have a removable door, which I might actually consider routing out a portion of this. I got to think about that, but yeah, probably not. I'll probably just shorten this up a bit and slide it down toward this edge. There we go. I'll probably cut a little bit of the length off this, move it down toward the edge. That way I can put the access door right in here to access behind the washer dryer unit for its connections. I believe I allotted about 6 extra inches beyond the depth of the machine, and then I allocated some space on the side over there. But anyhow, these are the upright supports. I've got to find the pocket hole jig pieces. My brother used it and I just don't know where he put it, to do some pocket hole drilling on these up and down into the floor. And then on this one it's going to have pocket holes also up and down on the floor. And right here we'll put a support into the wall with some 2x2 or 2x3 material for some support for the shelf on that side. So the plan here is to lay a shelf over these boards, and then lay another shelf over that shelf. I've got to decide whether the shelves are going to be 2 layers of 1/2 inch ply or 2 layers of 3/4. Certainly 3/4 would be a bit stronger with 1.5 inches of support, but it might be overkill. I've got to consider how I want to use the material that I bought. I need the 3/4 for floor supports and floor decking, so I may opt to do the 2 layers of 1/2 inch plywood as the support here. But that remains to be seen. So the next piece I'm going to cut will actually be that top piece. It's getting late though, a little too late to be running the saw, so I'm not sure if I'm going to squeak that in or not. I need to check the time. So I did actually cut one more piece for tonight, the top here. Once I've got this all situated, there'll be an upright again right here, and this will have butcher block topping next to the stove, which will go here. Then the freezer with butcher block, but the upright here will house the first fridge, and then there'll be 2 dividers, the next fridge. And then under here we're going to have a refuse can, probably on rollers, as well as a sort of an island on rollers. I may actually put the refuse can on this side, but that will allow us to have access to storage easily. Just step to the side, use it as prep surface or whatever. We'll be able to roll that butcher block storage unit wherever within the kitchen area, make a little bit of an island out of it over here if we want, and so on and so forth. It should be very versatile. I may put some drop leaves on it to kind of use it as a table, to be determined. But anyhow, what I'm going to do right now is I've got this kind of set on these plywood pieces. I'm going to put the blocking in underneath here against the wall to help hold this, and get that screwed in so that next time I try to assemble it, it's being held. Right now I've got this piece in there kind of diagonally, just to prop things up. But anyhow, I'm going to get some 2x material and get it screwed against the wall as a lip for that to set on. So at this point I've got that 2x material screwed into place, and I'll be ready to do the pocket holes and get this thing put into place. I think I'm gonna prime the horizontal surfaces, and I'll prime vertical surfaces. I don't know, I might just prime them all, but I was thinking I might just prime what can be seen, but I guess it wouldn't hurt to protect the wood. So alright, so this is how this first layer is going to look as far as its rough construction. You got the combo unit behind there. The door is going to close against it, and over here we've got, like I said, the cubby for the garbage and the roll-out garbage can and roll-out pantry with the butcher block. And then right in here we're going to have that storage for like cookie sheets or whatever. This is going to be the lip to rest spoons on next to the stove, just kind of to keep the keep fire from spreading up against the wood near the fridge, keeping heat away from the fridge, etc. So just a little bit of a spacer lip. So anyway, this wall will continue up, the one with my thumb. Then we'll have the two refrigerators, and those will come into about right here, and then over here is where the pocket door will close, roughly somewhere right in here. So there'll be from here over another piece of wood going up, and then behind that is going to be a shelving unit for the bathroom, which will be on this side with the commode, opening of the washer dryer. The commode will be this way, and I believe right in here is where I'm going to put a tiny sink and a mirror for washing hands, etc. So this will primarily be my wife's lavatory. I'll likely use the one that's going to be tucked away back there with a little sink. So, you know, we're going to have our separate bathroom space, just for I don't know, because it works better that way. So anyhow, that's it for the evening. I'm hot, sweaty, and it's getting late. So I found the pieces to the Craig jig. I'm going to do, I have it all set up for 3/4 dimension, and I'm going to get the holes drilled in the plywood here for these cabinets, at least for this first layer, and then we'll get the second layer cut. So I think I'm going to at least get the primer on this stuff before I assemble it. I may wait to do the final paint till I'm assembling, or till I have it assembled, but I'm going to get a coat of primer on everything first. So anyhow, I'm going to get at it. So I'm drilling pocket holes in these pieces. I'm trying to keep the pocket holes where they're not going to be as visible. I don't know if I'm going to try to wood fill any of them. I guess the ones that might be visible I'll put some wood putty in, but the idea here is to just make it good and strong and try to make it as attractive as I can. I've decided I'm going to either use wood fill or either wood filler or spackle on the ends, sand it a bit to tidy up the ends and make it look not like plywood. And then I'll decide later if I'm adding any additional trim or not. So it might be a fairly modern look with sharp edges. I know as I go through these videos I seem a little flaky with what I'm doing. Change the plans as I go, that's the issue. So I actually just decided to wait to paint because I actually want to put wood putty on things to make it look nicer before I paint, and to do that I need to assemble it. So I'm actually going to assemble it, mask off the floor, and then I'll paint this. Certain spots that won't get seen will not get much of a coating, maybe a few inches inside there with a brush, etc. But anyhow, I'm working on the second level here, doing double thick layer here on the countertop portion that'll support the refrigerator units. And so I'm about to screw that piece down. I've got a spacer in, and then I'll keep moving across. But I've done the pocket holes and screwed this stuff down, and I actually used 1.5 inch screws instead of the pocket hole screws, just because these 3/4 pocket hole screws don't actually make contact for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong, but haven't figured out what. So anyway, just using a little bit longer screws, and I'm going to keep going here and And I might even get the pieces cut for the top there. So we'll see what happens. I'll have to relocate that DC power supply out of the way. Alright, so I got a coat of paint on this. It'll probably require another coat all the way around. So anyhow, I'm going to quit for tonight. My family's texting me wondering where the heck I am. So anyway, more tomorrow. It's the weekend. Back at the bus here, it's getting pretty full of stuff. We've got plumbing components, pump, accumulator tank, pressure gauge or pressure valve, lots of fittings. I've got the water heater tank there. This is a instant propane tankless water heater. I've got a jet pump there. I've also got these pieces of plywood I had cut at the radial arm saw at Lowe's to make it simpler. These will be uprights for the next level of the shelf here for the appliances, as well as floor panels for the middle here. I'm going to use 2-foot wide panels on support runners, and those will have carpet squares glued to them. So there's pet-proof, waterproof carpet squares that I acquired. So that'll be there, and then I'm going to glue the carpet squares in the back as well. So right now I'm going to get started here outfitting the second level for the appliances and getting that in order. So I'm laying out the lines for cuts here on these. I actually will have the shelf bottom at this line. This will be 34.5. It's about a 1/4 inch more gap than I need for the fridges, but that I did on purpose to make it a little easier to put them in the shelf. But it's still close enough that they won't be able to tip out. I will be bolting the front bolts through the plywood here, in this region on each here, and down in here on that piece, and similarly over here and here, so that the feet actually are sort of bolted through. I'll just get some bolts to match the thread of the feet, and then put a spacer in that matches the actual spacing of the plastic part of the fridge foot. So that way I'll be able to drill some holes through, use some fender washers from underneath with a bolt, and get the refrigerators snugged into place in a way that they will not shift. And then with having only a 1/4 inch gap in the shelf above the fridge, that's gonna keep them from tipping forward and putting stress on the bolts. So should be good. I may also just kind of wedge some foam up in the top after installing them to kind of keep the spacing tight against that shelf. What I'm doing here is on the two uprights here and over here on the ends going up, those are going to be matching the height of that wall right there, which is a little under 4 inches from this middle panel in the ceiling. It's 78.25 from the floor. So in matching that, it'll create a better visual appeal, and also will let me potentially tie in together between those 2 points a little bit easier. So 2 of these are getting cut at 44 inches, and then 2 of them will be cut at the 34.5 inch mark. So I'm going to get the circular saw in here and make some cuts. So I've got these 2 center pieces kind of just dry fit to see where they fall. Trying to line them up on the face here with the most outward point. Got this one going in. It's going to need some cuts done. Need to figure out the geometry here to push it in further. Taking some measurements from various points on the wall. What I'm going to do is measure the gap here, because they're the same width, and use that to help me figure out the angles. But I do want this to kind of touch that wall there when this is flush, and we can lock it into the wall with some screws as well, some pocket screws. So anyhow, there's going to be an air gap behind. I'll be using computer fans controlled by controlled by the microcontroller and a temperature gauge behind the fridge. So that'll help ventilate behind the fridge units. So anyhow, I'm going to keep moving here. Got to do this layout. I'm going to have to relocate the temporary DC power supply. And once I have this all fastened, pocket hole fastened and whatnot, I will be putting a coat of paint on it. And then I think what I'm going to do here for the fridge doors is I'll drill like a 2-inch hole through it, and then I'll drill from the face in the center into that, and I'll insert a T-nut from behind, and I'll have a bolt going through to close the doors when we're traveling. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to have, a bigger circle behind going this way, and then the T-nut will come in from there, and then the bolt hole here will have a cushioned washer that'll kind of hold the refrigerator doors shut. It may actually have that on a bit of a toggle so that it just kind of can be put this way and that way, or totally removed. So the thought there is I'll use a thumb screw to make it easy, no tools required. So I got to figure out what size thread and what kind of T-nut I'm going to use there. I think I'll just glue the T-nut in place, is most likely I'll do that, or use a small wire nail if I can get one tacked in at an angle, so just to hold the T-nut in place, but definitely some glue. So I'll remove that temporary shelf and move that power supply here for now. Ultimately that's going to be a 48 volts converter that'll feed this coming off the battery bank. I'll be using these extra tubes that I put in to funnel the 12 volt wiring to these posts. So, and that'll be fused with a 25 amp fuse. So my measurements tell me that line there is what I need to cut off of this. I'm going to cut just a little bit aside from it and see if I'm on the right track. Make sure I don't screw it up. So that way I'll be able to push it a little closer and just eyeball it. Alright, so trial and error here. I got that gapped in pretty nicely against that ceiling panel, and I'm going to trace the other one off of this one. Hopefully it'll also be close, and then I'll have these pieces cut and ready to install, and then I'll paint them. So that sucking up right there is also cut close to the wall so that it's close enough to trim out. And actually this side will be in a closet, but still will make it look nice, and it'll help support it as well. So anyhow, next step, I'm going to take this measurement here across, and I'm going to cut a shelf for up above, up in here. I think that shelf could probably be 1/2-inch plywood. Well, I guess for fastening it, it'll be easier with 3/4. I'll stick with 3/4, I guess. But anyhow, I'm going to cut a piece for that shelf. I can tell from the gap here that 24 inches will be a good dimension. There won't be any problem with that. I actually could go a little further, but that'll be more efficient use of the plywood to stick with 24 inches. That way I can use it for the flooring that I'm going to do as well. So anyhow, I'm going to get this measurement figured out and go cut a piece. So I actually trimmed this from 48 to 47 1/4, and that's because the gap here was going to be 48 3/4. I wanted to maximize the wood I had, so I used some blocking on each side to make up the gap. The shelf is going to be screwed into this. This also gives more meat for the shelf to be screwed in with a longer screw through the Craig jig pocket hole to really get it stuck in there good. I'm going to screw up from the bottom, and that'll give it a good 1.5 inches to work with, so I can use a bit longer screw in the pocket holes. Probably do 4 pocket holes per side. I've got the center line marked. I'm going to line that up with this, and the shelf will actually be lined up here with the bottom. It's not going to block in. It's going to be gapped out here going this way with the pocket hole screws, and I may block it up top To be determined. We'll see how the screws work, but I may reinforce it some more with a little bit of wood blocking this way as well. We'll see. So anyhow, and then from here it's just going to get screwed straight down in from the top with probably 1.5 inch screws or 2-inch screws. So I've got these two pieces screwed together on both sides, so they're functioning as one unit. And again, I'm drilling that hole somewhere in here for the T-nut to hold the doors shut. So anyhow, I'm going to get this screwed together, and I'm using 2-inch screws. I'm going to come at it like so from the inside and get these kind of screwed into the plywood below. Probably 3 or 4 per piece. So I'm going to get at it. And those 4 screws are put in place, and I'll do the same on this one and that one. So I've got the uprights screwed into place. I've got the shelf pocket hold, 6 per end. They're going to come from underneath and attach into these blocks with fairly long screws. I've got to figure out if that's 1.5 inch or 2-inch screws. So what I'll probably do is put one through right here and then just measure how far it comes in. So I have this base cabinet installed. I'm going to trim it out, I believe, with the oak that I'll be building butcher block from. It's probably 200-year-old true 2x4s that we've held on to after remodeling this house on this property. So I intend to cut that oak down into 1.5 inch to 2-inch butcher block. And what I'll do is actually use some of that oak to trim out the edges here. I'll cut it 1/2 inch thick, and we'll use that for trim pieces. And also over here on the sink below the metal, I'll put a strip of oak in. And possibly I may actually use the oak to trim out the edges of the plywood. To be determined. That might be challenging to do because the dimension's kind of small. The other option there is just to fill it in with the wood putty and paint it. Not sure what I'm going to do yet on that. I like the idea of the oak trim, but you know, it may be, like I said, challenging with the small dimension to get it looking good. So I'm no mold maker. Anyhow, what I'm going to do right now is test fit the refrigerator that's out of the box already in both of these openings and see where I'm at with the process. So I took some measurements. It looks like I should be able to wiggle it in just fine, but I'm going to test fit. Alright, so luckily it looks like I know how to measure things, and this fridge fits. So what I'm going to do is take it out, put it in the other one. I'm assuming that'll fit as well, because that looked to be about 1/8 of an inch bigger gap on this opening, but we'll test fit. No sense just making assumptions when it's easy enough to check. So the intention here will be to reverse the door on this side so that it opens outward and they both kind of close toward the middle. That's my thought on it anyway. That way we can set the grocery bags on this shelf of the sink and just kind of load them into the fridge from the middle there. So anyway, I'm going to test fit it here in the other opening. After that, I'll start painting this shelf. Alright, so it definitely fits in there. I think what I'm going to do is take some measurements using the center as a reference. I'll make this edge line up exactly with this wood, and then I'll do the holes for the legs based on that reference point. I'll take those measurements and I'll drill down through. So as I paint this, I'm going to put another coat of paint, but I fully anticipate it's going to get scuffed up under the fridge. I'm doing that mostly just to protect the wood if we have any condensation or anything like that. I may also run a bead of caulk in these seams, just a light bead to kind of prevent any moisture damage in the shelf if we happen to have something leak out of the fridge or something like that. So anyhow, next step, that caulking and some painting, and then we'll be good to go. Tidying up a little bit, I've unboxed this freezer. This is a Hisense freezer, 5 cubic foot. It doesn't match the decor, but it's going to be hidden behind wood panels, and this top is going to be a butcher block top when I'm done. I'll probably figure out if I can just screw directly into this from the sides to fasten that butcher block. I expect I probably can. It's just a lid. It's not electrically active in any way. So anyhow, I'm going to kind of put this out of the way in position, lay some cardboard on it to protect the lid. So looking at this here, the height's pretty good. I might have to make an extra thick top here, I don't know, but the stove's going to be where I have it right now. I'm going to slide this over to right there, which will be where it gets installed. So we'll see how close it is to the couch. Hopefully there's enough room there for an armrest when I'm done. So anyhow, gonna slide this over and keep tidying up. And now we paint. So I'll start at the top here and get the back wall as well, get the top shelf, and work my way down. So I'll get a nice coat of paint on this. Hopefully I get a good one coat coverage here. So at this point I've got the appliance cabinet painted on the inside and the shelf here. I'm thinking the one coat ought to do it. The whole idea there is just to protect the wood a little bit. So anyhow, I've got this ready to dry. Once it's dry, I can insert the appliances. I'm going to clean up the wires a little bit, run the more permanent runs of DC behind before I put the fridges in. I'm going to use a little heavier gauge wire to feed each of the microcontroller setups. So I got to run some of that. I have one of the wires already run through a tube here, but I'll have to keep doing that. Put a second tube in with another wire. So anyhow, that's it for today, I think. I'm just going to tidy up a bit and try to open up my floor hatch after doing the flooring and get some stuff stowed. I decided to do a little bit more before quitting for the day. This is the ceiling of the shower area. The red guard side will go down when it's flipped inside. I'm edging it with 2x material to strengthen it. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to have a little bit more wood in the middle on 16-inch centers to use for the tongue and groove cedar that I'm going to put on it. I'll be nailing that with stainless nails. And then before I put the ceiling on, I'm going to go ahead and oil it just to make it a little easier. Reach. I can't exactly use a ladder inside the whirlpool, so I'm sure I could figure it out, but might as well just oil it while it's still down. So that's what I'm going to do. Build the frame, get the cedar on, and oil it. I'll at least get the framing done tonight before I quit. What I'm doing right now is stripping some heavy gauge wire out of its kind of old tired casing. This was wiring that was feeding the original bus heaters for the control and the fan motor. So nice heavy gauge wire. I'm going to reuse this for the DC. There'll be the control units, one here, one on this side over here, and then I think another couple down that way. So I'm just wanting to run an individual positive and negative strand to each control unit from the fuse block, and I want to use the heavy gauge wire so that it's good and safe. So I have the wire chase kind of cleaned up, got it stabilized and taped and banded and whatnot. So anyhow, it'll be out of the way, it won't be rattling around. I've got some extra wires in there as well. So what I'm going to do now is, actually I'm in the middle of reversing the door on this one fridge. This will be the one for this side. So I'm going to get it finished and put in place here. And then I'll get the other fridge unpackaged and put into its spot over here. I think I'll just set them in there as temporarily stowed, kind of where they go. I still have to do the hole here and whatnot, but I just want them out of my way at this point. So I'm going to tuck them in place, and then we'll switch tasks to the bathroom with the cedar. Alright, so what I just did here, moved on to a different project. I pulled up these floor hatches, and what I've discovered is with the flooring in on them, they're really hard to get out. So I'm going to need to cut a bevel along each side, probably shaving about 1/4 inch or so off the bottom, beveling up to this point here. I don't know if I could do that on the table saw carefully. I'll have to consider the best way. Might actually have to use a guide with the circular saw on an angle. That's probably what I'll have to do actually, but that probably won't be much fun. So if you're building hatches, put a little bit of a bevel on the edges to make it easier to open and close them. I had to pry this one out. It was really difficult, but now that it's out, I'll be able to correct the issue. I'll still have plenty of material to catch at the bottom. I've got about 1.5 inches there, so if I knock 1/4 inch off on an angle here all the way around, just bevel it down a little bit, that will work very well to keep the hatch loose. I also need to mind any edges which might be catching a little bit, so sand them down a bit. I'll probably hit the ends with a sander just to smooth things out a bit. So anyway, a little bit of adjustment there, then I'll be able to put the hinges on and recess the pull tabs that I have for the hatches. So that's it for tonight though. It's getting real late. Next thing I'm going to do here back at the bus this evening is to cut the bevels in the hatches so that they close and open without catching, without getting bound up. So I'm probably going to use, like I said, the circular saw on this. I don't see how I can easily slide that down the table saw. It's a little too wide, heavy, and the edges aren't quite smooth, so I don't know how that would ride against the fence. So I'm just going to take them outside on sawhorses, and I'll set up a guide for each edge. We're going to start with this big one and that little hatch right there that's kind of a little bit catching as well. So probably just set the saw for like 5 degrees or something like that as far as the bevel goes. I don't want to come in more than about 1/4 inch on the edge. Alright, so I've got the blade angled here. Got the fence put in place here at 1 3/4 inches. That'll shave 1/4 off at the bottom bevel here, bottom of the bevel. I've just got to set the depth here a little bit deeper, and then I'll cut. So I got 3 of the 4 bevels cut here, coming in I don't know, about 3/8 of an inch on the edge. I'll hit this with the sander on the side just to kind of catch the rough edges. So get that last side done, get the sander, and then we'll be ready to fit this and see how much easier it comes up. So I use the Makita belt sander there to kind of smooth the edges, smooth the surfaces a little bit so they don't catch as much. I think we're ready to try this. It should release a lot more easily when I pull on it, so hopefully it just comes right up. So I've dropped this in place. Now I'm going to test my theory here that it's easier to lift, and hard to do that while holding the camera, so I'll update you afterward. So using the strap to grab the handle so it doesn't cut into my fingers, I'm able to get this up. I sanded it a bit more on the edge by the handle. I need to recess that a bit in the wood. What I'll probably do is rig up some pneumatic struts below to help lift this. It's pretty heavy. Of course, I've got to put hinges on this side. I've left them in the mailbox at my house. So anyhow, if I had a recommendation here, it would be to reduce the weight of the hatch, like I've done over there. Use smaller ones. You know, 2 smaller ones beats 1 big one. So fortunately, I don't expect this is going to be used frequently. This will be more of the longer term storage here for things that are seasonal. So we'll probably only open this once or twice a year. So that's my thought or game plan on it. But who knows? With the pneumatic struts, it might be more useful. So we'll see. So right now I'm working on the bevels on the last hatch here. And then I'll sand it and I'll be ready to put everything back together. So it's a little bit more involved than I thought. Quite a bit of sanding to get the edges smooth. So what I'm going to do right now is this is the bathroom whirlpool ceiling. A little dusty, but I'm going to use these cedar closet liner pieces and some stainless steel nails. And I'll be tacking these down using a nail set and a hammer and nail set. Then this will go up and get fastened, and then I'll be able to do the walls. That'll stabilize the whole partition system there. So anyhow, I'm going to get to tapping these together. It's getting a little late, so hopefully I can work quickly and avoid disturbing everybody around here. Alright, so we've got that first piece tapped into place. Now for the next. Wow, this looks so beautiful. Imagine it oiled when I'm done. It smells incredible too, Western red cedar. So this is pretty easy. The stainless nails are holding up pretty nice. These are Simpson Strong Tie brand, 1.5 inch. I actually put some studs underneath here to sink them on 16-inch centers. So I am going to keep going. Hopefully I don't piss everybody off. So I got about that far. I flipped the board around here so I can reach. Now I'm going to keep going. Okay, so I managed to finish tapping this together with the stainless nails. I think it looks really pretty already. I know it's going to look really good when I put the milk oil on this. That's citrus and tung oil 50/50 from the Milk Paint Company. Put a couple coats of that oil on, and then we'll get this positioned up on the ceiling. I will likely drill the hole for the rain head shower initially before I put it up. So anyhow, very pleased with the result here. Heck of a lot easier to hammer these on a workbench than above my head. So anyhow, the walls won't be too hard, but this I was worried about trying to do. If I positioned it overhead, it would have been very challenging. So anyhow, I really love the cedar look. I'm kind of tickled that it turned out. So I split a few ends on some of them, but not enough to be a problem or be very noticeable. Hopefully the oil will kind of moisturize this a little bit. So anyhow, that's it. I'm going to head home.